Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another 80s Retro Horror Friday for a film which I've been wanting to revisit ever since I got it last year on DVD, which was an alright viewing. But anyways, for this entry, it is for Videodrome from 1983, starring James Woods and Deborah Harry, and is written and directed by David Cronenberg. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it isn't just because he has a new film coming soon. I believe it's called The Shroud, but also because of The Substance, which got a lot of attention for its body horror aspects, a horror subgenre often associated with Cronenberg, so there were a lot of comparisons which you may have heard along the way, it being referred to as Cronenberg-esque. Anyways, let's get to the synopsis for Videodrome, which states, a programmer at a Toronto TV station that specializes in adult entertainment searches for the producers of a dangerous and bizarre broadcast. So put yourself in a mindset of like 1983 being a time frame. VHS rental shops are exploding with popularity, cable TV spreading across the country like a virus, as well as satellite offering not just hundreds of channels compared to, like the local broadcast that most people had only had access to up before that, but really expanding the type of content which was available as well. Particularly when it comes to satellite, that we aren't just talking like rated R titles, but often some really strange and unusual content as well, experimental in various ways. But so our local UHF TV exec Max, played by Woods, is on the lookout for new content. We get some really nice establishing shots of him checking out some Japanese content to see if he wants to carry that show. If it'll draw in an audience. Because with so much opportunity for new content, this also breeds a lot of competition as various stations try to kind of make a name for themselves by providing content that'll really stand out and grab an audience and retain them. Now, when looking for content, Max is also given Videodrome, a seemingly art house style show with no real plot and people being, seemingly tortured. He shows this to a woman that he's become involved with, a radio host played by Deborah Harry, who he met while on a talk show discussing media in general. But she ends up getting quite turned on by it, as she's kind of into a little bit of pain play, let's just say, and she even wants to track down where she can actually audition to even be on this show. But while she's gone, Max is looking into Videodrome in more detail. He's kind of investigating it and comes in contact with what's referred to as a media theorist, Brian Oblivion. From here on out, things get kind of philosophical and surreal. We have dreams and hallucinations around this technology and how the populace and how society kind of reacts to television having more access, this overabundance of stimuli, how it can cause some issues, yet at the same time open one's perception. How it can also be used to control and subdue people if used the right way, kind of used for like nefarious reasons. There's also lots of info about almost like these underground movements and conspiracies floating around in this story as it kind of intertwines with the hallucinations Max is experiencing, which brings the most memorable aspects of this film, in my opinion, to the forefront. Like these amazing practical effects for scenes such as a TV screen bending outward or a tape being inserted into Max. Both of which were covered recently on an episode of Corridor Crew Reacts. I know I've brought up this channel before, but from their point of view, with their technology and their know-how today, this would be an easy thing to pull off. But learning what was done back in the 80s to try to bring this to screen practically, all in camera, just really threw them for a loop, and they're really amazed with what they were able to bring across. So I will link to that full video in my description, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. Now, I have seen movies with strange effects and like philosophical angles in the past. One of the not recent, but just more recent than this one being something like Enter the Void. Movies like that are great if you're in the mood for something really heavy, both visually and philosophically, something to really, think on and kind of take in with while, insane visuals really come your way. But where I feel that Videodrome kind of stands out for me is the balance and the length. This film, as a film with both the body horror style aspects, common to, and from what I understand, kind of coined for Cronenberg, as well as these philosophical aspects with how media consumption was exploding onto the scene at the time. something which is still relevant today, but in kind of like a different format, using phones and such instead. These aspects are really balanced well against this conspiratorial and almost espionage style feel within this film, which also uses the time very well. While I've seen a lot of these films try to put, so much information, they take a lot of time to do it. This one does so in a slim 90 minutes. I feel this is achieved because of their very quick introduction to our characters and similarly quick launch into, kind of like the hook of this entire story, which is, what is Videodrome? Is it real? Where did it come from? What happened to this Nikki character, or the the character played by Deborah Harry? They really get you on board with who they are and wanting to get all those answers really quickly. They don't really waste a lot of time. So by the time things are wrapped up, which simply gets kind of like crazier and crazier along the way, it feels like more time has passed as they fit so much into this 90-minute time frame. But while storyline wise it felt long enough to kind of fit all of this, it was done at that fast pace which never felt like it slowed down at all. The only downside to that, of course, is that since you don't have a lot of time to really take it all in, you may need to have like a second viewing to really understand what you like and don't like about this film, or if you enjoyed it in general, because you kind of have to watch it, sit with it, maybe give it another watch because it's so fast paced compared to some of those other films that run a lot longer. But I will say this, while the premise is hard to really go into too much detail for without giving like a play-by-play, it really is a unique film with some great performances, great direction, a mix of sci-fi body horror with an almost philosophical aspect regarding to the abundance of media consumption, which though it may take a second viewing to really appreciate, this for more than one reason, I really think it's more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this video here. It's a little Friday horror 80s throwback video for Videodrome from 1983, which at the time of this video is available on paid rental. I watched it on Blu-ray, which everything really popped with all those visuals in the 80s. I'd actually bought the same edition about a year ago, but accidentally had purchased the DVD for it. I've been thinking about looking for a new home for it, but just the packaging is really cool, and it even looks kind of like a little VHS or Betamax on the side of it, so I may keep it just as a little bit of a memento. Also, around the time of this video, there is an episode of the WTF Podcast with Marc Maron where he interviews Cronenberg, which is definitely worth listening to. This is in part to promote that new film, The Shrouds, but he touches on a lot of his older work as well, so I will link to that episode in the description, so head on over to check that out. I will also be putting a link at the end of this video to the last Cronenberg related video that I did, which was for Scanners, which should be popping up in just a moment in one of these corners here. And as always, if you enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up, and if not already subscribed, consider subscribing. Checking out my back catalog and coming by each week, as I usually do 1 to 3 videos. I always do one on Friday, occasionally something a little bit lighter on Monday, and Wednesdays is usually either a mashup of some much older content or just something a bit different that I needed a place to fit it in. Anyways, thanks again for coming by. That's all I got, and I will see you in the next one.